Or you have yards which are quite far off from the loading stations. So somebody can come and manipulate and put some narcotics in those wagons and nobody knows, because the yard and the loading stations are very far off. So we have to take care of these problems which are practical nature. The visa liberalization agreement I really welcome, and I must say that the Ministry of External Affairs in both the countries played a very important role. I'm not a great admirer, with due apology to Salman Bashir, of the foreign ministries and the external affairs ministries, but they did a very good job in trying to come to this. But this is where the shoe pinches. We had this incident of LOC, and the visa liberalization agreement was put on a hold. This is not what ought to be done. I think you have done in good faith. Continue, so that there is a certainty among the people. If the Pakistani businessmen do not know whether they will be able to travel and meet their counterparts, this long-term relationship will never be established. This requires efforts in cultivating each other, and that happens through communications and through face-to-face meetings. Again, I remember I signed the MOU with Governor Reddy in 2005 for opening of the bank branches. But today, in 2013, I'm still told that the bank branches have not been allowed. I talked to the governor, and he said, we have allowed the branch opening, but RBI has still not taken that decision. You cannot have any opening of letters of credit or confirmation unless there is a State Bank of India branch in Pakistan, or Punjab National Bank branch in Pakistan, or the National Bank branch in India. That is the essence of the trade normalization. Telecommunication links. I mean, I can't have the roaming for my cell phone. I go all over the world, I have the roaming facilities, but I can't have it here. I have to go and get a new SIM for a new set of the telephone. Now, if you want trade, you have to be on the telephone, you have to be on the internet, you have to be in the best means of communication. There's no flight between Islamabad and Delhi. There's no direct flight. There is one flight from Karachi to Bombay or Karachi to Delhi. That's not how businesses operate. They have to go to Dubai or they have to go to Doha in order to catch a flight to come. We have 5 flights daily from Dubai to Karachi and Karachi to Dubai. Can't we have 5 flights from Pakistan to India in order to expedite this interaction? So in conclusion, the 4 messages which I want to leave and convey this evening for normalization of India-Pakistan trade are: there's hardly any doubt that India-Pakistan trade is a positive-sum game in which both the countries will benefit. Despite all the measures, there's hardly any chance of dislocation or disruption to either Indian or Pakistani economy. Under the most optimistic scenario, Pakistani exports to India are unlikely to exceed 1% of its total imports. Similarly, Indian exports to Pakistan will always remain between 6 to 7%. That is the same proportion as the size of the two economies. And trade imbalance in favor of India should not be a source of worry in Pakistan, because it is a reflection of the relative size of the two economies. We have imbalance with China. Why can't we have imbalance with India? If Indian goods are cheaper coming to Pakistan, the Pakistani producers and consumers are going to benefit. So why is it that the trade imbalance per se is a 4-letter word? We should get out of that mindset. Second message: manage the transition process and the risks in a proactive, preemptive, and collaborative mode, so that minor irritants and frictions do not snowball and result in the breakdown of trade relations. Pay careful attention to each country's sensitivities. Continue to engage in dialogue and conversation even at the times of crisis, political difficulties, or misunderstandings. Avoid serious disruptions, abrupt retaliations, and knee-jerk reactions. Do not make economic cooperation hostage to political differences and disputes. I have argued earlier that there are countries in the world which have political disputes and differences. Malaysia and Indonesia and Singapore were part of a union. They broke down their union, but the trade flows between the two countries are enormous. Taiwan is claimed by China, but look at the relations between China and Taiwan on investment, and we are not saying that you give up your principle to stand on your political disputes, but create the constituencies and the stakeholders through the economic interests so that these political differences can also be resolved amicably. It's a sequence, it is not simultaneously. Third, strive to develop an enduring, uninterruptible, and I thank my friend Mani Shankar for using this word, uninterruptible, long-term relationship through better trade facilitation, visa liberalization, people-to-people contacts, banking presence, telecommunication links, investment promotion, cultural, educational, and scientific exchange. And I can tell you, I put my money where my mouth is. I have established a strategic partnership agreement with the Indian School of Business in Hyderabad, and we are holding joint programs. We already are doing that. So it is not that it is difficult to do it. If you want, you can do that. And that leads a better understanding among my students about how the Indian business education is all about. So they learn a few things, and we tell them in Hyderabad as to what we are doing, and they learn a few things, and both of us benefit from this exchange. And finally, with all due apologies to my bureaucrats, and I have friends who are here, and I love them, replace the usual South Asian bureaucracy-driven approach that is reactive, slow, and ponderous by a more private sector-led approach for problem solving, dispute resolution, grievance redressal, and removing policy and institutional constraints and getting on with the job. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ishrat Hussain. As you can see, this has been a very thought-provoking delivery, a thought-provoking lecture. It's obvious that we have a long way to go, but as we say in South Asia, it will all work out in the end. And if it has not worked out, it just means it is not the end yet. So we shall persevere and work towards what you call is a win-win situation in which every resident of South Asia can benefit from a better relationship between India and Pakistan. We have two excellent discussants to initiate a discussion of what has been presented by Dr. Ishrat Hussain. I will request them to be brief but punchy so that we can get a discussion going. So I can count on Dr. Surjit Bhalla for sure to do that, and I think Mr. Sunil Munjal is not behind him in that. So with that, Surjit, let me ask you to begin.
Thank you very much, Isha, and thank you, Ishwat, for really covering all the bases, covering them very effectively, and there isn't anything I disagree with. And I just want to make 2 or 3 points which will further expand on what you said. And the first one, whether one looks at growth or inflation or whatever, we have common problems. And I like to look at India and Pakistan, if you will, as twins separated at birth. And we had the unfortunate, if you will, circumstance that our mothers were IAS officers. And I really think, you said that, I just want to reinforce the tragedy of micromanagement, and we should call it Kafka management. That is the hallmark of Indian bureaucracy, and I can speak with certainty about the Indian bureaucracy. I will assume, since we were twins, or are twins, that it's probably similar across the border. Now, one of the, and you alluded to the visa problems, and this one I want to really speak to the Indian audience, that do not for 1 second think that the visa problems that Indians have vis-a-vis, if you will, Pakistan, have anything to do with the political differences between the two countries. Some people might go away with that impression. Just ask any Indian abroad what difficulty they have in coming to their own country. So this is beyond Kafkaesque. This is, I don't want to call it a tragedy. It's just beyond comprehension. The fact that Indians coming to India have to, if you will, renew their visa in 3 months or some other such ridiculous. Who imagined this? It could only have been an IAS officer or an IFS officer. So I really want to stress that I think the fault is not vis-a-vis the political differences, it's our own. And you had a word in there about the mindset. That is what really needs to change. And it's a horrible mindset, and if you will, we have that in India. We are fighting with these issues every day in terms of, diesel pricing cannot be done, and, I don't want to go into this, but really it's our mindset that I think is almost beyond repair. But now we come to the good news, and I think the mindset is changing. The mindset is changing because there's a powerful middle class in India, and I think a powerful middle class in Pakistan as well. And this middle class, if you will, is not going to take everything lying down as if you will, my generation did. And will haul these people up in terms of calling their bluff. That this whole idea of nationalism and this and that is gradually changing and changing for the better. And certainly I don't take the notion that every politician in India comes up and says he's serving the country. I don't know whether they do the same in my twin country. But do we want to sort of allow this to go unchecked? I mean, a person enters politics because they want power, because they enjoy their job. A person becomes an engineer because he or she enjoys a job. Politics is a job. Don't think you're sacrificing anything at all. You're doing it because you like it, and so be it. That's to the good. I'll conclude with, if you will, that I'm very surprised at the textile items, the if you will, 34% that you said were in textile areas, 30% in agricultural goods. I wonder what the other 36% is. I mean, defense, maybe I can understand. Anything beyond that, it should not be allowed. And I do agree with you that I think India has to take the lead. But India has to take the lead with its own citizens, regardless of Pakistan. And I think maybe that will begin to happen. Finally, I will conclude this, and then just that I think the new role, at least that I feel can be taken, is to call the bluff of the politicians, call the bluff of the bureaucracy, and if you will, try and shame the bureaucracy. Nothing else seems to work. Maybe if you shame them into calling their policies to be as ridiculous as they are, like the visa policy that India has for its own citizens, maybe then we can look forward to the end.
Thank you, Surjit. May I now ask Mr. Sunil Munjal to say a few words?
Thank you. Everyone hits a wall every now and then. The trick is not to do it with your head. But we've developed this unique capability, both in India and Pakistan, to continue to do this repeatedly. It sometimes seems a bit strange. But when you sit back, you can, in some sense, philosophically explain to yourself, oh, by the way, there is a history to this. Why can't we let history be history? The issue is that we need to get away from investing in maintaining a bad relationship within our neighborhood. We are the world's lowest trading regional bloc right now, and you mentioned that in your speech. It makes no sense at all. You said we are very alike, and which is a fact. And sometimes I think maybe that is the reason we are not able to reconcile, because we are very, very alike. And if you go across the border, I've been a few times, and incidentally, I started working on this Indo-Pak relationship about the same time that you started writing about this, 2004-05, and had occasion to meet with the leadership over a period of time, the then Prime Minister and President, the current Prime Minister and President, and the one before this. In the last visit, it was pretty interesting. We met with Mr. Nawaz Sharif, we met with Imran Khan, we met with the then Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, Commerce Minister, the whole lot of them. And you're absolutely right. They all said, by the way, there is clear realization now that we think we need to repair this relationship. In a private conversation, somebody made an interesting remark. They said, we actually realize that by following the policy we did, we've actually got left way behind. We see, and this was something I heard for the first time, that India has gone way ahead of us. And the second, this is one of your economists made an interesting comment. He's saying, if we are smart, we'll hang on to India's coattails right now and ride this wave that India is already riding right now. 20 years ago, when the government of India said we want to open the country up, one of the biggest resistance came from business within India, saying we should not open up. These big companies will come from outside, they'll finish off our markets, they will take over our companies. What actually happened? In every single industry segment, you have companies in India which are, if not the global leader, amongst the top 2, top 5, or top 10. We have 20 companies in India which are global leaders in their field today. And most of this has happened in the last 20 years. I am absolutely confident, and by the way, Pakistan business works under very, very adverse circumstances. I've seen some of my friends there, and it's worse than what we used to face 20 or 25 years ago. I have little confidence, I have every confidence that once this opens up, Pakistan has a market available to them easily up to 350 million consuming Indian middle class. In the Pakistan market is 30 million consuming middle class. For India, it's the size of 1 or 2 states opening up. For Pakistan, it's a market 10 to 12 times your size opening up. We've seen this in our own case in India. Every time we've tied up any kind of a preferential trade agreement, after the initial hiccups, and there have always been some hiccups in getting it going, it's always been the smaller economy which has gained more. Whether we look at Sri Lanka, we look at Bangladesh, we look at Nepal, and we look at a whole host of relationships that we built outside in other places. India's also done one more thing, incidentally. India, as you know, as a part of opening up its economy, it also matured a little bit. I think it wanted to be seen as a statesman in the region. We started what we call the Look East policy first, and then started building relationships with individual companies in Europe, not just Europe as a whole, and also went to rebuild the relationship with US, and then went to the difficult ones, China, immediate neighborhood of Bangladesh, and now Pakistan. When we went in the first visit, we could see the hesitation not just amongst the officials, we also saw some of this, actually a lot of it, amongst trade and industry at that point in time. I'm talking about 10 years ago now, 10 or 12 years ago, and which was completely understandable. In the last visit, we made an offer to your leadership. We said, if you want to open one-way trade, we will go back and try and convince our government to open only export from Pakistan. If you think that will help Pakistan's industry and Pakistan's trade, build this bridge. Because this bridge is not only for trade. This bridge is a bridge one can ride over to address the more intractable issues which have been around for a long, long time. And I completely agree with you, by the way. I have an issue with all those who say you have to fix everything first, only then you can start trading. It will never happen. It's just not practical or possible. I think if we can build trade and investment on both sides, we will build a vested interest for peace. And if you have peace, you're able to discuss difficult issues. It's like any relationship. It's not different. And if you go outside, if you travel to universities in the UK or US, you will see Indian and Pakistani kids are usually roommates or best friends, or certainly amongst the best friends. And the reason for that is what I said earlier, is the similarity between us. I'll just address two issues which you mentioned on the non-tariff barriers. We were presented with this, by the way, when we went to Pakistan. We came back and we actually squarely put these to the government in India. Some of these issues did get addressed, as you know, about the standards and testing and others. And on the non-tariff barriers that are known, which are already with the government right now, there is a team working on this as we speak. And we are hoping to hear some announcement for them in the not too distant future. If there's other stuff that we don't know about, please feel free. Please tell your industry or the Commerce Ministry to send them across. Indian industry right now actually has enough confidence to stand up and compete in the world. And we think opening up with Pakistan is a very good idea. It's a very good idea for both. As I said, certainly a better idea for Pakistan, but also for India, it's a good idea. Pakistan has a lot of things you import right now from countries other than India. So if you start to import some of those from India, your consumers will certainly benefit. If you look at the automotive industry, by the way, the three industries which are resisting opening up the most in Pakistan, to my mind, actually stand to gain the most. The automotive industry, the engineering industry, the chemicals industry, and the pharma industry, and now the agriculture lobby has put up massive resistance to opening this up. And this negative list, by the way, originally, which was drawn up, we were shown was about 300 odd items, went up to 600 items, went up to 800 plus items, and now is, I forget the exact number, 1280 or some such, 1260, 1280. I presume by the time the agriculture issues finish, it will be 13 or 1400. But that's fine. That's absolutely okay to start with. But let's make that start. Let's make that first move. And the issue on border, etc., I think it's frankly completely stupid of us to allow trucks to park there for 3 or 4 days. Nobody is gaining. And nobody gains from, we have some $3.6 billion of